Chapter 15, Part 3 of How I Found Livingstone. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. How I Found Livingstone. Travels, Adventures, and Discoveries in Central Africa, including 4 months' residence with Dr. Livingstone. By Sir Henry M. Stanley. Chapter 15, Part 3. Homeward Bound. Livingstone's Last Words, the Final Farewell. I am not going to inflict on the reader a repetition of our march back, except to record certain incidents which occurred to us as we journeyed to the coast. March 17th. We came to the Kwala River. The first rain of the Masika season fell on this day. I shall be mildewed before I reach the coast. Last year's Masika began at Bagamoyo, March 23rd, and ended the 30th of April. The next day I halted the expedition at Western Tura, on the Unyamwezi frontier, and on the 20th arrived at Eastern Tura, when soon after we heard a loud report of a gun, and Susi and Hamoida, the doctor's servants, with Uredi and another of my men, appeared with a letter for Sir Thomas Maclear, Observatory, Cape of Good Hope, and one for myself, which read as follows: Kwihara, March 15, 1872. Dear Stanley, if you can telegraph on your arrival in London, be particular, please, to say how Sir Roderick is. You put the matter exactly yesterday, when you said that I was not yet satisfied about the sources, but as soon as I shall be satisfied, I shall return and give satisfactory reasons fit for other people. This is just as it stands. I wish I could give you a better word than the Scotch one to put a stout heart to a stave ray, a steep ascent, for you will do that, and I am thankful that, before going away, the fever had changed into the intermittent or safe form. I would not have let you go, but with great concern, had you still been troubled with the continued type. I feel comfortable in commending you to the guardianship of the good Lord and Father of all. I am gratefully yours, David Livingstone. I have worked as hard as I could copying observations made in one line of the march from Kibir back again to Kazembe, and on to Lake Baguelo, and I am quite tired out. My large figures fill 6 sheets of foolscap, and many a day will elapse ere I take to copying again. I did my duty when ill at Ujiji in 1869, and am not to blame, though they grope a little in the dark at home. Some Arab letters have come, and I forward them to you. D. L. March 16, 1872. P.S. I have written a note this morning to Mr. Murray, 50 Albemarle Street, the publisher, to help you, if necessary, in sending the journal by book post or otherwise to Agnes. If you call on him, you will find him a frank gentleman. A pleasant journey to you. David Livingstone. To Henry M. Stanley, Esquire, wherever he may be found. Several Wangwana arrived at Tura to join our returning expedition, as they were afraid to pass through Ugogo by themselves. Others were reported coming, but as all were sufficiently warned at Unyanyembe that the departure of the caravan would take place positively on the 14th, I was not disposed to wait longer. As we were leaving Tura on the 21st, Susi and Hamoida were sent back to the doctor, with last words from me, while we continued our march to the Nwangwala River. 2 days afterwards we arrived before the villages of Ngareza, into which the head of the caravan attempted to enter, but the angry Wakimbu forcibly ejected them. On the 24th we encamped in the jungle, in what is called the Tongoni, or clearing. This region was at one period in a most flourishing state. The soil is exceedingly fertile, the timber is large, and would be valuable near the coast. And, what is highly appreciated in Africa, there is an abundance of water. We camped near a smooth, broad hump of syenite, at one end of which rose, upright and grand, a massive square rock, which towered above several small trees in the vicinity. At the other end stood up another singular rock, which was loosened at the base. The members of the expedition made use of the great sheet of rock to grind their grain, a common proceeding in these lands where villages are not near, or when the people are hostile. On the 27th of March we entered Kiwyeh. At dawn, when leaving the Badaburu River, the solemn warning had been given that we were about to enter Ugogo, and as we left Kaniyaga village, with trumpet-like blasts of the guide's horn, we filed into the depths of an expanse of rustling Indian corn. The ears were ripe enough for parching and roasting, and thus was one anxiety dispelled by its appearance, for generally in early March caravans suffer from famine, which overtakes both natives and strangers. We soon entered the gum tree districts, and we knew we were in Ugogo. The forests of this country are chiefly composed of the gum and thorn spices, mimosa and tamarisk, with often a variety of wild fruit trees. The grapes were plentiful, though they were not quite ripe, and there was also a round, reddish fruit with the sweetness of the sultana grape, with leaves like a gooseberry bush. There was another about the size of an apricot, which was excessively bitter. Emerging from the tangled thorn jungle, the extensive settlements of Kiwyeh came into view, and to the east of the chief's village we found a camping place under the shade of a group of colossal baobab. We had barely encamped when we heard the booming, bellowing war horns sounding everywhere, and we espied messengers darting swiftly in every direction giving the alarm of war. When first informed that the horns were calling the people to arm themselves and prepare for war, I half suspected that an attack was about to be made on the expedition, but the words "Uguru, Waguru, thief, thieves," bandied about, declared the cause. Makandoku, the chief of the populous district 2 days to the northeast, where we experienced some excitement when westward bound, was marching to attack the young Mteme, Kiwyeh, and Kiwyeh's soldiers were called to the fight. The men rushed to their villages, and in short time we saw them arrayed in full fighting costume. Feathers of the ostrich and the eagle waved over their fronts, or the mane of the zebra surrounded their heads. Their knees and ankles were hung with little bells, joho robes floated behind, from their necks, spears, assegays, knob sticks, and bows were flourished over their heads, or held in their right hands as if ready for hurling. On each flank of a large body which issued from the principal village, and which came at a uniform swinging double quick, the ankle and knee bells all chiming in admirable unison, were a cloud of skirmishers, consisting of the most enthusiastic, who exercised themselves in mimic war as they sped along. Column after column, companies and groups from every village hurried on past our camp until probably there were nearly 1,000 soldiers gone to the war. This scene gave me a better idea than anything else of the weakness of even the largest caravans which travelled between Zanzibar and Unyanyembe. At night the warriors returned from the forest. The alarm proved to be without foundation. At first it was generally reported that the invaders were Wahehe, or the Wadi Rigo, as that tribe are scornfully called from their thieving propensities. The Wahehe frequently make a foray upon the fat cattle of Ugogo. They travel from their own country in the southeast, and advance through the jungle, and when about to approach the herds, stoop down, covering their bodies with their shields of bull hide. Having arrived between the cattle and the herdsmen, they suddenly rise up and begin to switch the cattle heartily, and, having started them off into the jungle in the care of the men already detailed for the work, they turn about and plant their shields before them to fight the aroused shepherds. On the 30th we arrived at Khonze, which is remarkable for the mighty globes of foliage which the giant sycamores and baobabs put forth above the plain. The chief of Khonze boasts of 4 tems, out of which he could muster in the aggregate 50 armed men. Yet this fellow, instigated by the Wanyamwezi residents, prepared to resist our advance, because I only sent him 3 doti (12 yards of cloth) as hunga. We were halted, waiting the return of a few friendly Wagogo travellers who had joined us, and who were asked to assist Bombay in the negotiation of the tribute, when the Wagogo returned to us at breathless speed, and shouted out to me, "Why do you halt here? Do you wish to die? These pagans will not take the tribute, but they boast that they will eat up all your cloth."